Hey now, happy
Feel Good Friday afternoon. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He is Dan Lucero. We are here with you for the next 2.5 hours to round out the week on 580 Sports Talk. Well, just a little bit early today, at 5:30 for an early Royals first pitch. The boys in blue on the road to take on the Baltimore Orioles today, tomorrow, and Sunday. We'll talk a little bit about that series and why the Orioles, who just 2 seasons ago won 52 games.
And not like, oh, well, yeah, you have to win at least 52 to win 90 games. No, they won 52 games for the entire season. Why are they suddenly a playoff contender? And were last year as well, while the Royals continue to dig themselves into a deeper and deeper hole. We will talk about that coming up here in just a matter of moments. Also, a little bit of kind of a scare, I guess, with the Royals' 26-man roster today. Saw an update from the team that Nate is being called up. That in and of itself is scary. But then that Edward Olivares was placed on the restricted list, which made me instantly think, he get popped or something? Fair or not, that's what I think when I hear restricted list. It sounds like it's a personal matter. That's what Andy Rogers had to say. Covers the Royals at MLB.com. So hopefully nothing too serious. He's expected to rejoin the team soon. But yeah, kind of a foreboding, scary comment or roster move by the Royals. He's put on the restricted list. But hopefully nothing too serious for Edward Olivares. Anyway, along with the Royals talk in this opening hour, we'll talk some Kansas City Chiefs football. When Matt Derrick joins us for our Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. We'll also play Change My Mind coming up in just a little bit. We'll take a look at the Big 12 basketball offseason. Still some names out there that are searching for teams, but most rosters around the conference are mostly set at this point. Who's had a good offseason, who's had a bad offseason, who's going to contend with KU at the top of the league, and who might be flirting with the bottom of the conference at this point. We'll talk about that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Also, ESPN today, speaking of the Chiefs, they put out a ranking 1 through 32 of the top cores. 5-man, the core. We talk about the Chiefs championship core all the time. The 5-man core for every team in the league, they ranked them 1 through 32. Where's the rest of the AFC West? You can guess where the Chiefs are, largely due to the fact that their quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. But we'll break it down, and is the 5-man group that ESPN picked the actual core 5 for this Chiefs team? We'll discuss that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. What is wrong with you? As I mentioned, some Change My Mind, all coming up between now and 5:30, right here on 580 WIBW and 580 Sports Talk. We would love to hear your thoughts on anything we're talking about today, either on the text line, you know the number, 785-272-9429, or you can also chime in on YouTube. Our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW, and the comment section is open. Video is on. We are live streaming the show with you throughout the duration of the program today. If you only win 52 games in a Major League Baseball season, Dan, do you know how many times you have to lose?
110.
110 times. There are but a handful of teams in MLB history that have lost 110 times in a season.
The Royals have never done it. They have lost 100 games exactly twice. They've lost 103 games, 2019. They've lost 104 games, 2004 and 2018. And they've lost 106 games, 2005. They've never lost 110 games in a season.
Well, that's nice. You got something going for them there.
They've got that going for them.
Here are your teams that have lost 110 plus games in a season. The 1962 Mets. When you're talking about the worst teams of all time, they lost 120 games.
In the expansion era, they are the opposite of whatever the gold standard is.
The 2003 Detroit Tigers, they went 43 and 119. Pretty abysmal. The 1916 Philadelphia Athletics, 36 and 117. You see a pattern here? Like Garbo teams. Teams that are historically incalculably.
Thank you. Awful. That's pretty close to where the 2021 Baltimore Orioles were. They went 52 and 110.
The Orioles this year. You know what the Orioles' current record is, Dan?
38-24.
They're 38-24. They're 14 games over 500. You know what they were last year? 1 year after they lost 110 games?
Were they 83-79?
83-79. In the last season and a little over 2 months. The Baltimore Orioles are 121-103. That's winning 54% of your games.
Yeah.
Pretty good. For a team that just a year prior had lost more than 2/3 of their games, that's pretty darn good.
Now, Pythagorean win-loss has these Orioles overperforming a little bit. Has them as a 33-win team that's won 38 games. They've been pretty good in one-run games this year. You can do that when your 8th and 9th inning guys are the Monstars, and that's kind of what the Orioles have, and Yennier Cano and Felix Bautista so far. But still, even if they were performing exactly how their runs scored and runs allowed would project, it's a winning baseball team. It's a winning baseball team following a winning season 2 years after they were in the toilet, as far in the toilet as any major league team could have claimed to be at the time.
The Kansas City Royals that year, 2021, they went 74-88.
Yeah,
that's bad, but it's 3 years into a rebuild. Theoretically, they were on the upswing. That was the first full-length season for Brady Singer. First full-length season for Bubic and Lynch and all these guys who had come up in the 2018 draft, who they had all these young pitchers.
Obviously, they were terrible in 2018, 2019, 100-loss seasons, both of them. But after going 26-34 in the COVID year and 74-88 in 2021, it did. It felt like there was, if not dramatic progress, it felt like it was moving forward. The pendulum was swinging in the proper direction.
If I remember correctly, the Royals actually had a winning September that year. I was going to double check that real quick, but it just popped into my head. I believe
the Royals right now, they played 500 ball from July through September. They were dead even 500 ball. Of course, they came out of the gates storming hot that year. They started 15-9 in April. They were 16-9 before they went on a 11-game losing streak and then never saw the other side of 500 again. But
he played 500 ball for 3 months. That's pretty good.
Yeah, they played 500 ball for half the season, and they ended up 74-88. And what jumps out at you about the 2021 Royals is not like they didn't have like a bunch of guys playing spectacular ball. Like it was obviously a great year for Salvador Perez. That's a 38 home run season. And Nicky Lopez hit 300 that year. Andrew Benintendi was fine. Whit Merrifield was Whit Merrifield. They don't have a bunch of other guys where you look at, wow, they were way over their heads. Or, oh man, that was a career year for this guy. You don't really have that. But you would kind of expect a 74-win team. We're not talking about a juggernaut here.
Right.
But there's a lot of youth on that roster. Chris Bubic, 23 years old. Brad Keller, 25. Brady Singer, Daniel Lynch, both 24. Your closer, Scott Barlow, 28. Your two best relievers behind him were 27 and 26-year-old Josh Staumont and Jake Brents, respectively. And then the thought was that was a big year for the minor league system, too, obviously, with the breakouts all around from Bobby Witt Jr. and MJ Melendez and Nick Pratto and those guys. Where you felt like, well, okay, see the way forward here for the Royals.
Since that point, the Kansas City Royals are 83-141. That is a winning percentage of 371. That is a little bit above 1/3 of their games won by the Kansas City Royals.
In a 162-game season, a 30-year games is 54.
So in 2021, the Royals were 22 games better than the Orioles. They are, since that point, they played the exact same number of games. Since that point, they're 38 games worse. Why? That's who the Royals are playing this weekend. You start the series 6:05 tonight, 5:33 games here on the Royals Radio Network. They play the Orioles for 3 this weekend. They already lost the series 2 games to 1 to the Orioles at home earlier this year. Why is it that these two teams, when the Royals were seemingly on the upswing, and the Orioles were below rock bottom, why is this completely flipped? Why is it that this one team, Baltimore,
has taken off and is now a legit playoff contender. Baseball Reference gives them about a one-third chance to make the postseason this year. And they play in the tough division of baseball. And the Royals have tanked. And not even intentionally. They've just completely tanked as a team.
Well, the Orioles are a better offensive team. They're 5th in the American League in runs scored, where the Royals are 12th. They're 6th in the American League in OPS, where the Royals are 12th. And a lot of the difference can be found in the home run department, where the Orioles have 71 home runs as a team this year. That's right in the middle of the pack in the American League. And the Royals have 61 home runs. That is 13th in the American League. So start there. This Orioles team is better offensively, and they hit the ball over the fence. Like, they got a bunch of guys like Anthony Santander is a 30-homer guy. Ryan Mountcastle is a 30-homer guy. Austin Hayes has been over 20. Cedric Mullins has been a 30-homer guy. They've got dudes who hit the ball over the fence. The Royals have guys like, obviously, Salvador Perez has a 40-home run season, a season beyond any of those guys, but more commonly has been a 30-home run guy in his career. We know Bobby Witt can get to 20 because that's what he did last year. But, like, what do we expect from Vinny Pasquantino in the power department? What do we expect from MJ Melendez? Well, whatever we're expecting from Melendez, I think it's fair to say he's falling short so far in that power department. Nick Pratto, too, to an extent, even though he started to hit, 2 home runs in his last 4 games. Maybe figured there'd be more home run power from Pratto at this stage. But start there with, like, the tangible stuff. Like, the Orioles hit the ball farther, and they hit it over the fence, and they score more runs. And when you score runs, you can win more baseball games.
They also don't strike out. They're fifth best in the American League in terms of number of strikeouts offensively. The Royals are, and I want to make sure I get this right, the Royals are 12th in that category. 12th out of 15. Not good.
The Orioles are also better at getting on base when they don't get hits. To wit, they are 6th in the American League in walks drawn. They've walked 211 times. The Royals have walked 165 times. That is 14th best out of 15 American League teams. So the Orioles, better at getting on base, better at hitting the ball far, things that lead generally to run scoring. What about run prevention? Well, we know this Royals team has been pretty sloppy defensively this year, to say the least. I'm not looking at any of the Orioles' defensive metrics. You can find one that will tell you a story, and you can find one that could tell you a completely different story. But you can also look at the pitching staff and say this for the Orioles, even though they are 10th in the American League in earned run average, it's still almost a full run lower than the Royals. 4.24 team ERA for Baltimore, 5.10 ERA for Kansas City. Well, what are the Orioles better at tangibly? How about this? Striking guys out and walking fewer guys. 5th in the American League in strikeouts for the Orioles, 11th the Royals in that category. Royals are 13th out of 15 American League teams in walks. The Orioles are much closer to the middle of the pack in 8th. So it's those kinds of things. And, like, the Orioles do not have, again, this is not because the Orioles went out and spent a bunch of money, right, and completely overhauled their roster. Though the free agent acquisition they did make as a starting pitcher going into this year, veteran Kyle Gibson, has had a much better season than the guy the Royals spent money on to fill out a spot in their rotation. If the
check out yesterday's show, either on the podcast or in our YouTube playlist, if you want our thoughts on Jordan Lyles.
The Orioles decided they would rather have given Kyle Gibson $10 million for 1 year than pay Jordan Lyles to pitch any more baseballs for their team because they had the privilege last year. And it looks like they might have been onto something. I mentioned their bullpen. One thing that Dayton Moore always did seem to get right, and a lot of GMs get this right because you try enough guys and eventually you're going to find some dudes who work in the bullpen. Like Greg Holland was out of nowhere, right? Middle of the draft, just kind of an afterthought guy who turns into the best reliever in baseball until the point at which they convert Wade Davis from starting to relieving, and then Holland is the second best guy in his own bullpen for 2 magical seasons because Wade Davis is the best reliever in baseball. The Orioles have had a couple of late bloomers. I mentioned their names earlier, Felix Bautista and Yennier Cano, both of whom have ERAs in the low 1s. Bautista has 62 strikeouts in 30 innings, which is like video game stuff.
Yeah.
Like those guys come in the game, all they got to do is get a lead for 7 innings and the ball game is over. That's a pretty nice luxury. Royals fans, you remember how that felt in the mid-2010s where, hey, all we got to do is It's a 6-inning baseball game. That's all we got to do is lead through 6, and then we're going to be shaking hands because we're handed over to these monsters in the back of the bullpen. The Orioles have found those guys. Now, whether that's by divine providence or they're just that good at developing relief pitchers, who knows? 2 years ago, nobody would have said they were very good at developing any kind of pitchers. And they found Bautista last year, and then Cano was a throw-in in the Jorge Lopez trade and is the best setup man in baseball this year. So,
actually leads the Orioles and wins above replacement.
Yeah, just
as a relief pitcher.
Right, go figure. So, little better fortune in terms of pitcher development. They do miss a lot more bats than this Royals staff. You would think that's by design because the Royals haven't missed bats, the pitching staff, for some years now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the largest thing that will jump out most immediately is that going into 2022, both the Royals and the Orioles had a top-of-the-charts prospect who they felt like was going to be the cornerstone for turning things around and for improving the major league team. And one team has gotten the immediate payoff, and it's not the Royals. Adley Rutschman, in his major league career thus far, it's 174 games, so just over a full season. He played 113 games for the Orioles last year. They didn't call him up, even though he was very major league ready, so they could manipulate his service time and keep him for longer. In the 174 major league games of Adley Rutschman's career, he has posted an .813 OPS, which is 31% above the league average. He's got 21 home runs. He's got 70 runs driven in. He's playing a demanding defensive position and playing at a really high level. He's been responsible for 7 wins above replacement already in his big league career. He has been the transformative franchise player that the Orioles thought they were getting. He has changed a lot for them. Bobby Witt Jr. has played 211 major league games, has an OPS 102 points lower to this point, 3% below league average. He's got more home runs, 30. And he also plays a demanding defensive position at which he has visibly improved this year, but he has only been worth to the Royals 1.3 wins above replacement. Now, before you think this is me dumping on Bobby Witt Jr., I said it yesterday, I'll say it again today. I am not calling Bobby Witt Jr. a bust. I do not think that he is not going to improve from this point forward. The reason that Adley Rutschman has been this for the Orioles right away and Bobby Witt Jr. has not could easily be explained by the fact that Bobby Witt Jr. is 2 years younger than Adley Rutschman. Adley Rutschman played college ball. Bobby Witt Jr. did not. That makes a difference. It's a lot harder to be great at 23 than it is at 25.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time Bobby Witt Jr. is 25, who's to say he's not that guy for the Royals? He very well could be. But that is undeniably a big difference in where the Orioles have gone since 2021 and where the Royals have gone. Is the Orioles have not had to wait on Adley Rutschman being the guy they counted on him being, while it's been a little bit of a slower going and a slower growth process for Bobby Witt Jr. And in retrospect, that might have been easy to see because of the age difference and the experience difference coming into the major leagues. But that is a difference. And maybe that's the most crucial one. Maybe we can point to everything else we want to point to, but maybe it's just as simple as, hey, this franchise changer came in and really is changing the franchise.
If you look at just the very basic, the baseball card statistics, you can see very quickly, and you just ran through all of these, but you can see very quickly that Rutschman is really it. Like this is not a mirage. He's got it. He leads the American League in walks already this year. Batting average is almost 30 points higher. His on-base percentage is 37 points higher. Slugging a little bit less. He's not hitting crazy numbers of doubles like he did last year. He had 35 doubles in 113 games last year as a rookie. He's got an OPS that's better than it was a year ago overall. Like you mentioned, for his career, which is barely over one full season at this point, it's 31% better his OPS is than the Major League average. I mean, he is the real deal, Holyfield. That he is what the Orioles were promised. That, hey, this guy is transformational, which is kind of funny. I didn't know this until literally right now, that when he was drafted out of high school, he was a 40th round pick. 40th round picks are generally like someone in the front office knows someone at the high school, and it's like a favor.
It's that, or we know this kid isn't signing.
Yeah.
His college commitment is so strong, he's not going to sign. He is absolutely playing college baseball.
But maybe something happens.
Maybe the coach leaves and we'll get lucky.
So he went from 40th round pick of the Mariners in 2016 to first overall pick in 2019. And he has been that good. He has been that dude ever since then. I think the Orioles are a great one-to-one comparison here because they're playing starting tonight. And also because of where they were just a couple of short seasons ago. I went through it today. Here are the teams that I think that had worse records than the Royals in 2021 for whatever reason. That are now, I think, undeniably in a better spot than the Royals are right now, or at least are better than the Royals are now. You tell me if you disagree with any of these. The Orioles. Oh, no, they're in a better spot, clearly. The Twins.
Yeah, probably.
I don't really think the Twins are ever going to contend for anything in their current form, but at least they are around 500.
Yeah, they're one game below 500 and in first place. I'd rather be them than the Royals right now. Yes.
The Rangers.
Yeah, and they're unique because they spent their way out of they were in. They had the ability to do that to the point where they spent $100-odd million on Jacob deGrom, and they're not going to get him for a year and a half. And they're still fine because the other guys they spent a bunch of money on, like Corey Seager and John Gray and Marcus Semien, have all been really good. They've developed well, too. We'll give them credit for their player development. But they have largely spent their way out of trouble in a way that it is fair to note that the Royals are never likely to do.
The Marlins. I would personally put them in a similar category with the Twins. And their record is better. I don't really see the Marlins as anything close to a championship contender, but they're better than the Royals are.
They're 35-28. Their Pythag winning percentage is 29-34. They have allowed 24 more runs than they have scored. They have a phenomenal record in one-run games, despite not really having that great a bullpen. Their Cy Young winner from last year has an ERA over 5. Like, they developed a lot of really promising young pitching. Jesus Luzardo's having a good year. Eury Perez, who they called up a little bit earlier, he
looks like he might be special.
20 years old, and he's got a chance to be, I think, really spectacular. And obviously, we've talked about Luis Arraez, Atlanta. They're stinging the ball. They've got some guys really hitting the ball well as a team. But yeah, they're in a better spot than the Royals. I still think they're good. Like, I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs, but they're in a better. They're a lot closer to that than the Royals are.
The Pirates.
Again, I will say the same thing about the Pirates as I say about Miami. Is I don't think they're a playoff team, but they do seem to be like having some young guys take big steps forward. Mitch Keller, one of the worst starters in baseball the last couple of years. Age 27 season, looks like he's going to be an all-star. 94 strikeouts in 80 innings. He's got a complete game shutout to his credit. They've got some young guys who are swinging the bat well, like Rodolfo Castro, Jack Sawinski. They're going to get O'Neal Cruz back, and he's the biggest young star they've got. So they're still I still feel like they're kind of doing it with mirrors, but yes, better spot than the Royals.
And finally, of the teams that I thought are for sure better than the Royals are right now, the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yes, they are. Do I think they're great? But I think they are a playoff team. They have a really good, I think, at least top 2 in their pitching staff with Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. Their bullpen's been pretty solid, and they've got some really exciting young players, including Corbin Carroll, who's going to win National League Rookie of the Year. Like, that's a guy who got called up and at age 22 is like a superstar already.
So those teams, those 6 teams, were all worse than the Royals 2 years ago and are right now clearly in a better spot. 2 years later, not even 2 full years later. The other two, I think you can argue, and maybe it's clear to you. The Nationals, who have maybe the worst overall roster in the National League. They're still 7 games better than the Royals are this year. They've won 25 games already. They've at least looked at times confident.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I like the collection of position players. I would still rather have the Royals position players than the Washington position players. I might rather have Washington's pitchers. Josiah Gray at 25 years old, Mackenzie Gore at 24, both having pretty good years. But I'd rather have the Royals position players.
That's fair. And again, why they're in the arguable category. And I put the Chicago Cubs there too. They stunk 2 years ago. They're not good now either. But again, they actually spent on a free agent. That was nice.
They did some pending out of their ditch. Marcus Stroman and Dansby Swanson, and they tried with James Taglion. That hasn't worked.
He's just not good. Yeah. So I would put them in the better than category too. Like that's somewhere between 6 and 8 teams that were all measurably worse than you 2 years ago, who have all taken a step to either get on equal footing or surpass you while you are declining. I shouldn't say declining. I should say backsliding. I think that's a more apt word for where the Royals are right now, which is frankly just kind of depressing. Royals baseball coming up tonight, 6:05 first pitch, 5:30 per game right here on 580 WIBW. I'll take a break. Talk a little Chiefs football at the bottom of the hour, but first we'll get to a break, come back, and we will play a little
Change My Mind next up on 580 Sports Talk.
At Calhoun's Jewelers, we believe every piece has a story. From
Brendan and Dan back here with you on 580 Sports Talk. Had a minor audio issue with the YouTube stream, but it's back. All good to go.
Oh, good.
So if you want to check us out on YouTube, go do so. Our channel's called Sports on 580 WIBW. Quick round to change my mind before we get to Matt Derrick. Change my mind. The underdogs are done winning games in both the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals.
Boy,
Excuse me.
I would. So you're saying that from here on out, it's going to be Vegas wins the next two and Denver wins the next two, including tonight.
Correct.
I would love for the latter to be correct. That would be ideal for me in so many ways. If that were to be correct. I'm not going to be able to argue you off of that point because I am obviously very biased. I don't know. I think the Panthers might have found something last night. I think they can win another one, turn that into a series. I think they can win game 4.
I think in hockey, you always have anything could happen. Things get wild. I understand that. And that's kind of what happens when you get to overtime. Sometimes it's just you're the team with the luckier bounce. I still don't trust the penalty kill one bit for the Florida Panthers. I know they got a crucial stop at the very start of overtime last night. Still really don't trust it. So I'm going to say both championship series going on right now end in 5 games.
This news just breaking that Pete Alonso of the New York Mets has been placed on the injured list with a bone bruise and sprain of his left wrist and will likely miss 3 to 4 weeks.
Oof.
The Mets just got swept by the Braves. I believe they had leads in all 3 games in the series and gagged all of them. They are currently 30-33, 4th place in the National League East. Changed my mind. The Mets are going to miss the playoffs.
Mets are going to miss the playoffs. How many teams get in now? 6?
6.
Man, only one team is getting in from the Central. You're going to have 3 division winners.
3 wild cards.
3 wild cards. So you have 3 wild card spots from either the West or the East.
Right now, your wild card teams would be the Dodgers, Marlins, and Pirates. Mets are 3 out of one of those spots.
No, I think they've got too much talent. I think the Pirates are going to fall off. I think the Pirates are kind of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, I think both the Marlins and Pirates are smoke and mirrors. But that being said, this is a team that currently is 12th in the National League in OPS, and their bullpen stinks.
Yeah, it's bad.
And the guys they were counting on to anchor their rotation, Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, they're looking every bit of 38 and 40 years old right now.
Wow, hate to see that for them.
They might get it going, but it might end up being too little too late. Though, then again, in the National League, 81-81 might get you that last playoff spot.
Man, have really feel for Justin Verlander. What a sad day for him. That'll do it for Change My Mind. Coming up next, Matt Derrick joins us to talk all things Chiefs here on 580 Sports Talk.
is Matt. Are you ready? My name is Matt. Let's go.
His name is Matt Derrick. He covers the Kansas City Chiefs better than anybody and does so over at ChiefsDigest.com. And he joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for our Chiefs Insider every Friday at this time. Matt, what's going on, my friend?
Not too much. Get ready to watch some celebrity softball tonight with Marquez Valdez-Scantling softball game and a bunch of his teammates out there tonight. So I guess we'll see who other than Patrick Mahomes can make some behind-the-back passes to first or anything else you guys want to do.
I believe it was Justin Reed who told us earlier this week that a number of the defensive guys, including Brian Cook, have pretty solid baseball backgrounds. Do we have a spread or do we have a money line total here on either the offense or defense?
Haven't really made one yet, but I think you have to give probably a little bit of advantage to the defense. I mean, I think that they're going to have some speed, and I think they got a little bit of power. And I know traditionally in the past, I mean, it seemed like there's been some pretty good hitters. I mean, I know, hey, no longer there, but Dontari Poe was like a really good baseball player. So I can see some of the defensive linemen maybe having some power, and then they got speed up and down the lineup. So I don't know. I think they got a pretty good chance.
I feel like you have to beat the offense if you're like, there's a part of you that feels like we cannot let Patrick Mahomes keep winning. Like we have to knock him down a little bit because he's won pretty much everything for years now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do. I mean, and I think in defense, I think should. I mean, I think, generally, they've probably got a little bit better athletes, and there's probably some offensive linemen who'll be, plotting up the bases, and so that could be a problem for the offense.
As for the actual football, and I mean this question in a good way, or as good as I can possibly make it sound, but is this the most boring OTA period you can remember for the Chiefs? And I think that's good. There's no off the field drama. The core of the team is pretty much set. You're coming off of a Super Bowl. Is this the, least dramatically interesting OTA you can remember?
I've been thinking the same thing, honestly. I mean, I keep saying that, what's the theme of this OTAs? And it's just like business as usual. I mean, everybody's kind of just, back doing their thing. You're right. There's no drama. There's not a lot of position battles or anything. Even the guys like, Chris Jones not being there. I mean, everybody gets into this voluntary now, and it's almost like if guys missed or an OTA here or there or some of the program, that it's not that big of a deal if guys aren't there anymore. Most of the guys are there for some of it. They're certainly there for meetings and everything. So not that big of a deal. I mean, a few injuries to worry about, but nothing significant there. Nothing like it seemed like there for a while when it was always like, why is so-and-so not here? Or who's this, or what's the position battles? I mean, this is a very boring by the numbers kind of camp.
So if you're in Andy Reid's position then, and you have so few people that you need to get acclimated to, the Chiefs way, for lack of a better phrase, the intensity of the offseason program and training camp and what the playbooks look like offensively and defensively and the expectations and all of that. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of Charles Omenihu stepping in as a starter on the defensive line and the rookies. Like, there's just not a whole lot of newness. So if you're Andy Reid, Matt, how do you keep these things fresh and prevent them from getting too stagnant just as a complete group?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good question. And I had kind of asked a little bit about, yesterday as far as the, how do you handle it like in the receiver group when you've got so many, new faces in the last couple of years, and, you've got to figure out a way. I mean, do you have a different plan for any of these guys, or is it the same by the book for everybody? And, and honestly, that's pretty much how it is. I mean, what he does is he gives and throws everything at these guys from the very beginning. And then they get into the details, and then they kind of drill down. And that's probably a pretty effective way for the veterans too, because if they get the big picture, throws the whole playbook at them and say, hey, here's the scheme this year. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the changes. Here's where we're going to switch things up. Then, yeah, I mean, I think that does probably keep the veterans engaged, because at least they know the direction. They kind of know what they need to do. And he does on both sides of the football. I mean, they do depend on those veterans to be the ones to kind of coach up and help the new guys along. So, I mean, it's obviously, I think, been a pretty effective system for them. It's an effective system for Andy Reid. But and remember, too, I mean, I think this is true on the defensive side of the ball with Spags doing it most of the time, is that there's enough changes, there's enough tweaks to the offense and enough new material in there that I don't think that even for the veterans, it's the same old stuff every single year. I mean, there's enough, I think, new in there that keeps them interested and engaged.
Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com is our guest, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. He's our Chiefs insider, and he joins us every Friday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. You can check Matt out on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, Frank Clark is moving on. A one-year deal with divisional rivals, the Denver Broncos, announced yesterday. About $5.5 million on the base salary, escalators to $7.5 million. At that price point, were you surprised that the Chiefs didn't have more interest in bringing him back, or do you think they're pretty settled with their edge rusher group at this point?
Yeah, I think the price point was pretty critical. I mean, the Chiefs were certainly interested in bringing Frank back. Certainly, there was quite a few of his teammates who wanted to see him back, but that was not in the cards budget-wise. I mean, they weren't really interested in guaranteeing $5.5 million and then maybe up to $7.5 in incentives. I think they would have been more comfortable with a lower base, less guarantee. The incentives were probably fine, depending on what was manageable or not. But I think that was a little bit too rich, and also it's coming down to timing. I mean, I think the Chiefs will be interested, and certainly if there's any injuries that pop up or anything. I mean, I think it's still possible you'll see a veteran come in here, but it comes down to timing. And right now they've got no room for one. If anything that they do, any additions that they make, it's going to have to happen after the Chris Jones extension gets done. And after that, who's still out there? If Carlos Dunlap is still out there and interested in coming back, maybe he's the guy. But I think you make a good point, which is that they do seem to be pretty happy with the defensive edge group, especially with the young guys that they've got, that they don't feel that they have to go out there and overpay to bring in depth right now.
So if the Chris Jones signing is the next big domino to fall, has there been any, or not signing, but re-signing or contract extension, has there been any progress on that front? Is that something that you would expect to see done before training camp, or is that something that may take a little longer to get done?
Yeah, I don't get the sense that it's going to go beyond training camp. But training camp, I think, is a pretty good deadline. I mean, July 15th has always been my kind of over/under date. I probably would still maybe even take the slide over, but it wouldn't surprise me if it got done just right in the middle of July, right before camp starts. The Chiefs have more motivation to get it done right now. I mean, they would love to have it done, at least from what I've been told, and they wish they could already have it in place, certainly before, after the OTA, after the mandatory minicamp next week. Remember, I mean, a lot of people go on vacation, so there's not a lot of people in the offices for the next 4 weeks after that. So they'd love to have it done sooner than later, but it doesn't sound like there's been a whole lot of movement and motivation on the Chris Jones side of things. They're kind of taking, and his agents are kind of taking their time with it right now.
Do you believe that even a vet minimum contract might be in the offing for at any position, that the Chiefs might explore that option at this point in the offseason? Or do you think that they would prefer to put all of their focus and attention in terms of their financials into doing the Jones deal before any other business gets done?
I mean, Jones deal is definitely number one. I mean, that would even come before trying anything. I mean, if they wanted to even take a swing at DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Jones has got to get done first. I mean, some of it's, budget certainly, but it's also priorities. I mean, and they also don't want to, mess up their plan just to make an addition. I mean, that's why if they want to take a swing at DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, if they want to do it right now, they'd have to renegotiate some other contracts that are not Chris Jones. And that's not part of the plan. That's not part of the way they want to have their money structured out. So that's why it's not going to, I don't think it's going to happen immediately. If some addition like that's going to happen, Chris Jones is going to happen first. And yeah, I think it even applies to a vet minimum kind of deal. Yeah, I think it's closer to camp. It's a possibility, but I think that they still want to get Chris Jones done before they do anything else.
We're chatting with Matt Derrick, covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com, and he joins us every Friday afternoon here on 580 Sports Talk via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for our Chiefs Insider. Make sure you're following Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and of course, checking out ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, we're going to talk about this a little bit later on in the show today, but ESPN came out with a ranking of the best five-man cores for every single team in the NFL, ranked them 1 through 32, the core five for every team. If you are going to make that grouping for the Kansas City Chiefs and entering 2023, what would you say is the core group of 5 that the rest of the team is sort of built around?
Oh, man. I mean, okay, Mahomes, Kelsey, Chris Jones. After that, man, it could be a lot of different people, but I think I would probably say Creed Humphrey, and I'd probably go with another defender. So probably I'd say Nick Bolton, but I wouldn't be surprised if they said Justin Reed.
I think the Nick Bolton one is a good pick because I think he really kind of flourished in the second season, and the Chiefs have talked about him so much they gave him the green dot right away, or second year gave him the green dot responsibilities. ESPN had the same first 4 as you. They went with Joe Thuney instead as the 5th member, Matt.
And that was in my mind too. I mean, I could certainly go with Thuney either in addition to or along with Creed because he's the veteran and everything, but He flashed in my mind, so that does not bother me at all.
I'll also, to that point about Joe Thuney and to the point about Chris Jones as well, do you think, or who do you think, I guess is the question, who do you think would have to get a contract maneuvered around to make room to get a deal done, whether it is with Chris Jones need to make some space in the immediate future, they want to add a veteran free agent. What do you think would be the move with the current roster to get that done?
I think Chris Jones is the only one. I mean, there's a few others that they could, but a lot of them wouldn't create a whole lot of room for you. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, I mean, I think that the biggest one that you really could do with would be Joe Thuney's contract. But remember, I mean, he's 32, and then you're talking about spreading even more money out over I think the 1 or 2 years he's got remaining. You might even have to just do some void years to make it make sense, and the Chiefs don't like to do that. So. I mean, and from the people I've talked to in the organization, I mean, they're pretty adamant at this point that the only thing that they're interested in getting done is Chris Jones.
Again, our guest is Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He is our Chiefs insider. He joins us every Friday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. Just a couple more questions for you, Matt, as we wrap up. First, I have to ask about Andy Reid talking about his team's visit to the White House. He mentioned exotic chicken fingers as being a part of the spread. And I just want to ask you, when you hear exotic chicken fingers, what comes to mind? What do you think Andy Reid is talking about when it comes to exotic chicken fingers?
And the crazy thing is, I heard from a few other people about the food, and they definitely mentioned that French toast thing with the ham and all that. I mean, that I heard from a few people. I didn't hear anything about the exotic chicken fingers from anybody but Andy. I did hear they had some chicken with some breading and a sauce, so maybe that was it. But I did ask somebody. It was like, what was exotic about the chicken fingers? And they said nothing. So I don't know what it is with Andy. I mean, maybe they were just spicy. Maybe they just, I don't know. Maybe they went out and got some spicy tenders or something. But Andy was certainly impressed.
Could it have been the dipping sauce, perhaps?
It could have been, but then again, I also think that maybe it's Andy just being complimentary to the chef and everything, because I didn't think that cubed watermelon was a big deal either, but he went out of his way to compliment the chef on the cubing of the heart of the watermelon.
I have heard from other people who have gone out and had watermelon already this summer that watermelon is back. Like, watermelon is good again. And I didn't realize watermelon ever fell off like that, but apparently there's some good watermelon out.
And maybe in cube, it's different because, hey, most of us out there, I guess we're getting the melon baller and we get it in a round little ball. So maybe the cube was the way to go.
For all the best coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs and food and every other topic, too, head over to ChiefsDigest.com. That's where Matt Derrick covers the team and everything going on with the Super Bowl champions. You can find Matt on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick, and he joins us every single Friday at this time for our Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Matt, thank you so much as always. We appreciate the time, and we will talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Take care, everybody.
That is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. I had to step out momentarily. I came back, and the first thing I heard was melon baller, and I thought, oh, man, I missed something good.
Yeah, Andy Reid was talking about the cubed watermelon that they had at the White House. And I have heard, I don't know if you've heard this, but I have heard from multiple sources that watermelon this summer is really good.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh.
It's a big melon summer.
I can actually confirm that when we were in Chicago for Memorial Day, my dad got a watermelon and we had some, and it was really good. I'm a big watermelon fan.
I am too.
The melon baller, though, that's the move. The circles think? Of it. Oh, yeah. That's always the best kind. We've got to get to a break here at the top of the hour. When we come back at 4 o'clock, we'll take a look at what the Big 12 basketball offseason has been like, who succeeded, who has maybe failed a little bit. We'll get to that, plus your texts and your comments on YouTube as well. All next hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started on this feel-good Friday afternoon. I'm Brendan Dworzynski. He's Dan Lucero with you until 5:30 today, because Royals baseball begins at 6:05 with pregame at 5:30. And we'll dip on out of here in favor of the Royals radio network right then. Royals versus Orioles coming up this weekend. The Orioles have already won 2 of 3 from the Royals in the series they played earlier on this season. The Royals will try to avoid losing the season series. Or, I don't know, if they sweep it this weekend, they would end up winning the season series.
Yes,
how about that? Not going to put money on that. By the way, I found this out today while doing some research for a certain money-making or money-losing hobby of mine. The Royals' record in games after off days this year, 0-5.
Yeah. It's so weird.
They are winless in days when they are better rested.
They are going hard on their off days.
Grind set. The Royals live by the grind set. So, yeah, that's a little trend the Royals will try to break today. It'll be Daniel Lynch on the bump for the Royals. It'll be Tyler Wells going for the Orioles. Again, 5:30 pregame, 6:05 first pitch. You can listen to the game right here on 580 WIBW, which you might need to do to watch it because the game tonight is on Apple TV+.
I believe if you go to the Royals Twitter account, I think they're offering like a 2-month free trial of Apple TV+.
Really?
I thought that's what I saw earlier today. Let me double check and see if that is true.
Do you still have it?
Oh, yeah. We
Okay.
pay for it. Actually, that's a lie. My parents pay for it. And I'm on the... because you can, like, with Apple, you can, like, actually connect your family members, and you don't have to live in the same house to be family.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah. Take notes, Netflix.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm looking at this tweet right now. We're offering a 2-month free trial of Apple TV to new and returning members.
Wow.
To ensure you don't miss a single inning of Friday Night Baseball. That's at Royals. If you go down their timeline far enough, you will see that. Yeah, you can sign up for it. You can try it out yourself. You can binge Ted Lasso and enjoy Apple TV for the next 2 months. It's the least they can do, give it to you for free if you're willing to watch them play on it tonight.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. Ugh. That's coming up tonight. And again, you can listen to the game on the Royals radio network here on 580 WIBW. Coming up here in this 4 o'clock hour of the show, we'll talk a little Big 12 hoops in just a moment. We've also got today's What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. See if either of our 2 final stories of the week can take down the box bandit. And then we'll get to ESPN's ranking of the cores for every single team in the league. Every team, you've got your core, the championship core for the Chiefs, so the core you're building around for a rebuilding team. ESPN ranked the 5-man core for every single team in the NFL. The Chiefs are number 1. We don't even need to wait for the segment to know that. That's pretty obvious. They've got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. Easily the number 1 just with those 3. Who else do they include? And how does the rest of the NFL shake out in that ranking? We'll get to that coming up a little bit later on. We're still welcoming your texts, 785-272-9429. That is the text line. And, of course, the YouTube comment section is open. Our YouTube channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Hop in, check us out. Video live stream going throughout the show today. And you can jump into the comment section and let us know what you're thinking about anything we are talking about on today's show. Been a busy offseason for Big 12 basketball. Kansas has headlined a lot of that because the best player to ever go into the transfer portal, Hunter Dickinson, chose KU. A former 5-star prospect, Arterio Morris, left Texas and is going to KU. So that's 2 different major storylines there. Nick Timberlake, who arguably was the best pure shooter in the portal, ended up picking KU. Jayhawks have also lost a ton of players. Oh, by the way, Kevin McCullough is coming back. That was unexpected. I think Bill Self was not expecting that one to happen as well. So it's been a great offseason for KU. Is it fair to say, I want to approach this delicately because it's going to be a great league again next year. A league that is adding Houston, which was the number 1 seed last year. In fact, they got a number 1 seed ahead of KU in the overall rankings. Mm-hmm. I think Houston is probably going to take a little bit of a step back because you lose Marcus Sasser, you're going to take a step back.
And Jarris Walker, they lose him too.
Right, and he's going to get drafted first round in all likelihood. Yes. They do bring back Jamal Shedd, really good player. They've still got plenty of talent. They've got a good coach in Kelvin Sampson.
Bringing LJ Cryer in as well in the portal.
Yeah, you want to talk about in-conference transfers. That's a big one, leaving Baylor. it's going to be a really good league again. But when you consider the guys returning, Juwan Harris, Kevin McCullough, KJ Adams, when you consider the head coach, and when you consider the players that KU brought in, even with Baylor, I think, doing a good job of restocking their roster. I actually think Baylor, low-key's done a very nice job this offseason. With Houston coming in, with Texas looking like it's I'm a little impressed, I will admit, with Texas, the fact that they've added a decent amount of talent back when it looked going into this year or this offseason like they are going to have no one. Is it still KU's conference to lose at this juncture of the calendar year? Does it feel like it's KU's conference to lose?
I'd have to say yes. I would have to say that it is. I think that they have a ceiling that is not matched or not matchable by any other team in the Big 12. I don't think there's any other team in the Big 12 that can go into next year say our ceiling is definitely win a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are going to be some really good teams in the Big 12. I think that, I always look first at so what did you bring back that's like a core group of guys who is played together, who has experience playing together? Because I think that's important. And I think it's important to bring starters back. I think it's a big deal, as big a deal that KU's bringing 3 starters back as it is they're bringing in guys like Dickinson and Timberlake and all their recruits. But as far as core groups that are returning, teams with core guys that are back, I think the only teams in the conference that can match up in terms of just the volume and the importance of the guys that are returning for next year, TCU brings back 5 pretty important guys from last year. And then Emmanuel Miller back, Micah Peavy, Jacoby Coles, Chuck O'Bannon Jr., and Xavier Cork, all of whom played pretty significant minutes. Now, that's not their star by any means. It's not Mike Miles, and you could argue it's not their 2 best players because Damian Baugh is staying in the draft too. But that's a group of guys knows how to play together that fits Jamie Dixon's system. That's a good core group for TCU to return. I think Texas's returning group, even though they lost a ton, they still have Tyrese Hunter, good player, experienced player in the league. Dylan Dessou, MVP of the Big 12 tournament.
Yep.
He's back. Dylan Mitchell is back. I think that he can make a leap forward as a sophomore. That's a good group returning. West Virginia, I think, low-key has a good group of returning players with Trey Mitchell and Joe Toussaint at the guard spots and Muhammad Wegu and James Okonkwo in the post, both of whom I think showed some pretty impressive flashes at times last year. So I like they bring back a bunch of guys. They bring back, I think they might have more returning lettermen, to use a kind of an outdated term, than any other team short of BYU in the conference. And then after that, I think K-State's returning group is good. I don't think it's quite on the level of the returning groups of those teams, but bring back Naquan Tomlin and Cam Carter, starters on an Elite 8 team. David Gasson was a starter for a chunk of the season for an Elite 8 team. You get 3 starters back, you feel good about that. So as far as guys with experience, I think that's the group of teams that I think can say, we've got a foundation of guys who know what it takes to win in this league and play together. And that I think is an advantage. That I think is something that puts you ahead of the game, at least early on. It may even itself out by the time you get to Big 12 play.
Yeah.
But having experienced groups of guys who know how to play together, that helps you in November and December. That helps you in those MTEs, those preseason tournaments.
Maui, Atlantis,
go and pick up some wins and build your resume, build your tournament resume to where that could be the difference between you're a 2 seed in March and you're a 4 seed in March.
So with that in mind, because I think you're right. I mean, having guys who know your respective system, guys who have been productive pieces before, guys who have those high ceilings in K-State, and we'll get to the Cats specifically in a moment, but you look at guys who have been around and have consistency and still have a lot of room to grow. Naquan Tomlin's the one that pops into mind, and these other teams that we've mentioned have that too. Those are obviously very important parts of the entire equation. Now, if you take Kansas out of this next question, because I think you add Hunter Dickinson, who is pretty much the dream Bill Self big man, save for maybe a little bit of defensive effort, but otherwise, on the offensive end, it's everything Bill Self has ever wanted in a big man, ever. If you take Kansas out of the equation, what team do you think has taken the biggest step forward this offseason in terms of either recruiting commitments or transfer commitments. And I think, to me, depending on how you want to look at it and depending on what you value, I would go with either West Virginia or TCU. Because I think TCU has added one of the highest ceiling big men in the country in Ernest Uday.
Yes.
I saw a highlight yesterday from when KU played Omaha. First game of the regular season this past year. And I had forgotten this. Ernest Uday comes out from the block and deflects a pass in the right corner. It gets knocked away to Harris. He flips it up ahead. Dick in transition dunks it. I didn't remember that play. So we had those examples of Uday getting out to the perimeter and knocking passes away like he's a 5'8" point guard as early as November of last season. Now, he didn't play for a long time, or very much for a long time. I understand that, but there's unbelievable potential with Ernest Uday. Mm-hmm. They add that. They added Jameer Nelson Jr. They have added and I know that's just two of the multiple transfers they've added.
And like we talked about Cincinnati bringing LJ Cryer in, lesser player than Cryer, but veteran Big 12 player Avery Anderson.
That's who I'm thinking.
Left Oklahoma State and went to TCU. So that's three guys you feel really good about adding to your mix, particularly in Uday's case, because it gives them what they didn't have last year, and that's a playable big man.
Yeah.
They didn't have that after Eddie Lampkin Jr. got hurt.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's tough. But yeah, you throw in Avery Anderson. That's obviously huge on the perimeter. That's not the same as getting, Mike Miles, but it is a veteran, Big 12 experienced guy who can handle the ball, control the ball. I can see it if you wanted to make the argument TCU is the team that has improved the most. I think you could certainly argue West Virginia is in that category. I'm not a huge Kirk Kriisa fan. I'm not. I know you're not either.
Mm-hmm.
He can score. He can shoot. He loves to shoot. We know that. He loves to shoot.
This should be a little more orderly playing him on the ball instead of Joe Toussaint on the ball.
Yes.
And then you mix him and Jose Perez in that backcourt because Perez was a stud at Manhattan and he didn't get to play last year.
Yeah.
It was a bad situation. His coach left really late.
Mm-hmm.
And they fired the coach.
Yeah.
And he was going to transfer, but he didn't do it in time or something. And they never could get him eligible last year.
It was a mess.
So, but he was a 19-point-a-game guy at Manhattan. And then the big man in the middle, Jesse Edwards, and a guy K-State fans are familiar with, Raekwon Battle, who's an 18-point-a-game guy at Montana State.
He feels like a throwback, like mid-2010s West Virginia kind of player. Not that he and Javon Carter are the same kind of player, but you don't want to be guarded by Raekwon Battle. 6'5", plays nasty, can score a little bit.
Yeah, he hits tough shots. Yeah. That's the thing about Battle. You saw him in, again, if you're a Kansas State fan, you saw him in the first round of the tournament last year, hit some tough shots, particularly in the mid-range. And West Virginia, they're one of the teams in the league that's not shy about still shooting that mid-range jumper, making that a part of their game in a way that a lot of programs anymore tend to shy away from in exchange for more threes and more layups.
I would say I would probably lean West Virginia as being the team that has, just in terms of percentage jump, like if you were, how much better of a team will you be this year because of the pieces you added versus last year? TCU was really good last year. They couldn't shoot the ball worth a damn, but they were really good last year.
And if they had stayed healthy, they might have, I think they could have won the league if Mike Miles doesn't get hurt.
Absolutely. Whereas West Virginia, the metrics loved them, but I don't know.
Barely made the tournament.
Yeah, I did. That felt like smoke and mirrors a little bit. Or, the metrics sort of felt like that. Like, why do you keep rating them highly, even though all of the visual evidence seems to disagree with that? Would it be one of those two for you, or would you go in a different direction?
Yeah, probably one of those two. I think Texas did a pretty decent job restocking. We mentioned Max Asmus already, and his addition is going to replace a lot of the backcourt scoring that Texas loses. And Caden Shedrick's a good addition for them too from Virginia. Yeah. But they didn't add a ton, like in terms of like volume. They've only added 4 guys from the transfer portal now. One stud in Asmus and one guy who think is going to be a good player in Shedrick. But did they make a huge leap from being an Elite 8 team last year? I don't know that they did. Other than that, yeah, it's probably either West Virginia or TCU. Or, I mean, if you want to look at what Kansas has done. I mean, they've got 2 4-stars and a 5-star coming in addition to that really outstanding group of transfers. I mean, but again, like how much improved can you be from you already won the league? So if you're just arguing most improved, then I think it's got to be West Virginia.
Yeah, won the league and got a number 1 seed. I mean, it's hard to do better than that, except when you talk about actual performance in the tournament. Before we get to the teams that are going to be at the bottom of the league, because if you're adding 4 teams, you're obviously going to have a little bit of a shuffle in the standings. And frankly, it might be difficult for UCF and BYU these first couple years in the Big 12. BYU has had some good years. UCF has had years where they are respectable. I mean, they almost beat that Zion Williamson Duke team in 2019. They also were ranked somewhere in the mid-140s in KenPom last year, I think. Not especially great. But I wanted to ask about K-State in particular. It's an Elite 8 team a year ago. They bring in, they get Marquise Noel playing to an All-American level, 3rd-team All-American. They bring in an All-American in Keontae Johnson. Those two are the engine for a completely rebuilt team that goes on an incredible run through the tournament, and really an incredible run all season long if you want to go all the way back to the opening night in November. They have added Tyler Perry, who I think is a stud, and I think is going to be really good right away for K-State. They have not added anyone else to the transfer portal. We know they're very high on the freshmen, Taj Manning in particular, but as we talked about with Fitz yesterday, really that whole group of youngsters, redshirt freshmen, true freshmen, very high expectations from the K-State coaching staff for what they can be. I'll ask you what I asked Fitz. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you that in terms of replacing the veteran players, there's only been one addition so far through the portal, and that's Tyler Perry?
Hey, if Fitz is only at a 3 out of 10, there's no reason for me to be much higher than that. I'd maybe put it at about a 4 right now. But even today, you've got veteran guys making announcements that they have hit the portal. The point guard from Rutgers today,
Paul Mulcahy,
37% 3-point shooter, not a big scorer, but a playmaking point guard, veteran point guard. He would seem to fit exactly what Kansas State needs, and there has been reporting that Kansas State has reached out to him.
I will tell you this. The Sunflower Showdown can already get quite toxic between fan bases. If you're going to add not just Hunter Dickinson, but also, and this is not like a knock on K-State, I promise it's not, but known and notorious whiner Paul Mulcahy both into the equation, oh my God.
Yeah.
It would make for great sports talk content. I will not deny that. I would love that because you want to give Perry the opportunity to play either on or off the ball, because I think he's your number 1 playmaker next year. Mulcahy is the kind of guy who can make things happen both for guys on the perimeter and in the post, so that takes care of getting opportunities for both Perry and for Naquan Tomlin.
And again, we've talked about K-State wanting a big. Jordan Brown hit the portal today out of Louisiana, 6'11", grad transfer with 1 year of eligibility left. Played at Nevada, Arizona, and now Louisiana, and he was a 19-9 guy last year.
He also at Arizona was the Pac-12 Sixth Man of the Year.
Yeah,
apparently because I was reading about that today because I saw K-State might have some interest. Apparently there are some personality clashes that he has had at various places, including at Nevada with Eric Musselman, which is why Arkansas has gone after every transfer but him, apparently.
Weird that Eric Musselman would clash with somebody.
Yeah.
He's got the most agreeable personality, ever.
So, I mean, if there was any coaching culture that could deal with a guy who maybe has a big personality and maybe needs to just have it kept in check a little bit, I kind of think Jerome Tang and staff could handle that.
But I say all that to say this, whether or not Kansas State is really in play for either of those guys, we think they might be for Mulcahy. At the very least, we know that they're interested. Some interest has been reported, but the dust hasn't all the way settled on this stuff yet. And I think that there still needs to be some time to let this play out. We remember how late in the game it was that Keontae Johnson committed to Kansas State last year. And Kansas State is willing to wait. They're not getting guys for the sake of getting guys. They are instead going to wait for guys that fit what they want to do. They want their guys. They don't just want guys. They want K-State guys. They want guys who are going to fit well within the culture. And so I think even just 1 year in, they've earned the benefit of the doubt as far as maybe slow playing the transfer portal a little bit, making sure that the guys they do bring into the program. Now, I don't think they can come out of it empty-handed. Like I think they're going to have to, certainly make an addition. Like they're too thin in the post right now. They've got to go get a big, and they could really use another ball handling guard, even if it's not somebody who's played 90 plus college games like they talked about wanting. So like they're going to have to make additions, but they can afford, I think, to be patient and find additions that make sense for them.
One other name that's out there, because I think Brown would be a great fit as a big man. I think Mulcahy would certainly be an interesting fit. I said that before Kevin McCullough came back and KU was, no, we got to figure something out here. I wanted Arthur Kaluma.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur Kaluma is still available.
Yeah.
Go Power Cat, our pals over there. They have reported that K-State is absolutely interested. Now, the problem is, I guess this is a public problem. I don't know how the schools deal with this or the programs deal with this. The NIL stuff is going to come into play here.
Of course.
Kaluma is going to command some amount of cash. Paul Mulcahy is another guy who is going to command some amount of cash. And good for them. Not a problem. K-State is probably going to have to battle Kentucky for any player that they want because Kentucky literally has 7 players.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, like, if you're a big name, you say, dang, I want to play ESPN Plus games. I want to be on ESPN every night. Okay, well, I'm going to go to Kentucky. I'm also going to play with, like, a bunch of 16-year-olds because their entire team is freshmen. Mm-hmm. But guys like that are going to still have options.
But also, if you're K-State, you don't need you've got your big name. Tyler Perry was your big name in the portal. You've got your big name. You've got your version of Keontae Johnson maybe this year. You don't need to chase the name. You don't need to chase the reputation.
Right.
Like, it's not a failure if you don't get Arthur Kaluma or Grant Nelson out of North Dakota State or whatever. Get the guys that fit you. Find your Desi Sills. Find your Bebe Igiola. Find somebody who would be okay if they didn't start all year or if they didn't play a whole lot or they weren't guaranteed to play minutes every game. Like, you have to find guys who will be team players. Yeah. And that, I think, is as important as finding guys who are going to be, your superstar caliber players, especially if you believe that there's a step up in development and Naquan Tomlin can be a high level player, all Big 12 caliber player, or that Cam Carter can be an all Big 12 caliber player, or that Taj Manning can be impactful as a redshirt freshman.
I would be pretty stoked if they got Kaluma, though. I'm not going to lie.
No, I like that player a lot. I like that player a lot. So tough defensively.
Real quick, take UCF out of the equation because they were relatively so much worse than the rest of the new conference last year. Worst team in the Big 12 going into 23-24 will be...
Going into?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Oklahoma. I think that they lost a lot, and all the guys they added are, not all that impressive to me. They two ESPN top 100 guys. They got Javian McCollum, who I think is CJ's younger brother, who scored a bunch at Siena. They got a couple of Power 5 transfers, John Hughley from Pittsburgh, Rivaldo Suarez from Oregon, Jalen Moore from Texas Tech, or Georgia Tech, rather. But they don't bring back anybody super impressive to me, and they already were pretty bad last year. I mean, nowhere to go, I guess, for Oklahoma but up, but I would still suspect that they would be toward the bottom of the league, along with UCF, and maybe even BYU, too.
I think it might be BYU. That just feels like a program that kind of needs a reset. I think coaching-wise, they definitely could use a reset. Oklahoma, I read today, and there's just rumors I've read, might be another team that could be in the mix for Jordan Brown, the transfer from Louisiana, who you mentioned. They just hired the assistant who recruited him to Louisiana out of the portal last year. So no coincidences in recruiting, as they say.
Oklahoma State, real quick, also, I don't think going to be very good. Bryce Thompson and John Michael Wright are back, but they don't have any, none of the guys they brought in have any Power 5 experience.
It's the same problem they've had for 3 years or since Cade Cunningham was there. They just don't have difference makers.
They're going to be hard to play against because Mike Boynton's teams are always hard to play against. But are they going to be, if they're not a tournament team, then Mike Boynton's next team that's hard to play against might be in the Summit League.
Yeah, every team that contends in the Big 12 has a difference maker or multiple difference makers, preferably. Oklahoma State doesn't have that. They haven't had that since Cade Cunningham.
No. If Bryce Thompson were going to be that guy, I think he already would have been that guy.
Agreed. 100% agree on that. We've got to get to a break here on 580 Sports Talk, but we'll find our weekly champion in What Is Wrong With You after this here on 580 WIBW.
people.
It's time to find our weekly winner of What Is Wrong With You. But first, the Box Bandit will have to get by 2 news stories going head-to-head today on the program. Want to remind you, before we get to those news stories and a recap of the Box Bandit, that What Is Wrong With You is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Top City Metal cuts the metal you need to your specifications, which saves time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to your metal. Top City Metal Supply is on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. The Box Bandit, our weekly champion, a guy who broke into and robbed a phone repair store of $18,000 worth of goods.
And cash.
And did it while wearing a box on his head. But you can see the shipping label on it. Like, it came to his apartment or his house, and he said, oh, I've got an idea.
Perfect disguise.
Emptied out his new Yeti cooler or whatever and threw it on his head and went and robbed the place. And then he got caught in the same shopping center, literally a matter of feet away, getting drunk with his buddies.
Because at one point while committing the robbery, he took the box off to examine his bounty in full view of the security cameras.
Come on, man. All right, 2 news stories. We'll try to knock that one off today. I will do my story first. Pretty simple one here. We are going down to the de facto home of What Is Wrong With You. We're going down to Florida, where we meet Anthony Stravino, a Florida man who found himself behind bars on burglary charges after deputies say he broke into the patio of a Hernando County home to charge his phone. Deputies with the Hernando County Sheriff's Office say they were called to a home on Melicano Avenue in Spring Hill, Florida, at 7:15 Wednesday morning after a woman discovered a strange man sitting on her patio as she went to let her dogs out. An off-duty deputy was in the area and was the first to arrive at the home and says he saw a man who appeared to be very relaxed sitting on the patio charging his phone at an electrical outlet. The deputy detained him and says the man told him he thought he was at his girlfriend's house. And then he admitted he didn't actually know his girlfriend's address.
Oh, yeah, she lives in Canada. You don't know her.
The homeowner told deputies she also did not know the man, later identified as Stravino, and definitely did not give him permission to be on her property. Deputies then found a small plastic baggie of heroin where Stravino had been sitting. Oh, yeah, that was there when I sat down. Whoops, my bad. They also then found a bag of heroin on his person and a bag of methamphetamine in a small zippered case inside of his backpack. And also multiple small empty baggies, a syringe, and a scale in said backpack. So Stravino has been charged with burglary of an occupied dwelling, trafficking of a controlled substance, possession of narcotics, and possession of paraphernalia.
Burglary? What did he steal? Electricity?
Couple watts, I guess.
It really kind of sounds like he did not want to harm anybody. He just needed some juice for his phone.
Yeah, plug in. We've all been there. Who has not at some point in recent years had a moment where you thought, dang it, I really want to check Twitter, but I can't because I've only got 3% left. Damn, I wish I was buying an outlet. That happens sometimes. He didn't have a portable charger with him.
Well, most people take that L, but this guy decided, somebody got power outside.
Yeah.
Somebody's got an outlet. He found one.
Came strapped with the charger already? Yeah, he's fine. Just let the man charge.
Nah, man, would have freaked me the hell out.
Oh, yeah, I would have been freaked out too.
Although, if he'd have picked a house where the owner maybe didn't have dogs and didn't have to get up to let them out that early in the morning, he might have gotten away with this.
Yeah, he would have charged enough to get the little progress bar out of the red back into the green, and he'd be on his merry way to sell heroin.
Or do heroin.
Yeah.
Or both.
Yeah, or sell or do meth.
Or all four.
Yeah, very possible.
Florida man contains multitudes.
So, yes, Anthony Stravino. That's story number 1 for today.
Story number 2, we're going to Wakefield, Massachusetts, and we meet an 18-year-old funding ISIS with gift cards. The Wakefield, Massachusetts man is accused of knowingly concealing the source of material support or resources that he intended to go to a foreign terrorist organization, namely ISIS, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. 18-year-old Matteo Ventura was charged Thursday with 1 count of knowingly concealing the source of material support or resources to a foreign terrorist organization. According to investigators, an undercover FBI agent posing as a member of ISIS began communicating with Ventura when he was 16. Ventura provided the agent with 16 gift cards worth more than $1,600 from places like the Google Play Store, GameStop, and Dick's Sporting Goods.
Dog, he was trying to give ISIS an old rock band guitar.
with the intent that the cards would be sold on the dark web for less than their face value, and the profits would go to support ISIS, according to investigators.
Dog's trying to get him a copy of NFL Blitz.
Man. I remember I used to go try and trade in my old copies of sports video games like every year, and go in to buy my copy of NHL 99, toting my copy of NHL 98. Like, yeah, we'll give you $2.78 for that.
And then sell you a $60 new game.
Yeah, but hey, it would only $57 and change because of my trade-in. In total, it is alleged that between January and May of 2023, Ventura donated $705 intended to support ISIS. Ventura stated that he wanted the proceeds to go to ISIS for war on kuffar, or disbelievers, according to investigators. At one point, Ventura told the agent he wanted to go to the Middle East and fight with ISIS, but he never did. Outside court,
committed to the cause.
Outside court, Ventura's father said he was getting ready for work Thursday morning when the FBI started pounding at the door. My son said, "Dad, I don't understand. I didn't do anything wrong." I'm like, "You sure?" He goes, "Yeah, 100%, said Paul Ventura. "I opened the door and they said, your son's under arrest. But let me tell you something," Paul Ventura said. "They were after him." Ventura is ordered held pending a detention hearing next week. If convicted, he faces up to 10 years in prison.
Listen,
funding ISIS with GameStop gift cards.
I am a few credits shy of getting my master's in Homeland Security and military intelligence. Just a few credits shy. But I do believe you're going to have to funnel more than $700 to an international terrorist organization for it to actually mean a whole lot.
I don't know. It's kind of like donating to PBS, right? Like every cent counts. They have different gifts on like different tiers of gifts. Your donation to ISIS. Do you get a tote bag when you get this $50 donation gets you a tote bag?
This kid's an idiot. I feel like, right or wrong, you got to know that someone is watching everything you're doing online these days. And if you are 16 years old and someone just sends you a DM, it's like, "Hi, I am from ISIS," you probably should be a little skeptical.
The FBI maybe has too many agents at this point, because if they have enough for this guy to be in communication with this teenager for 2 whole years, just gaffling him repeatedly out of like Arby's gift cards, like
Dick's Sporting Goods gift card. No one on the dark web is buying a Dick's Sporting Goods gift card.
Yeah, we're going to sell these on the dark web.
So, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, if I misinterpreted this. He bought $1,600 worth of gift cards and it only ended up turning into $700.
Yeah. Because they sold them for less on the dark web.
Doug, have you ever taken a math class in your life? Like, what a harebrained scheme.
I can't believe he fell for
So
it.
did the officers keep him?
I don't know.
Like, is the officer going on a shopping spree at Dick's? Well, we got to go arrest this kid, but first, I need to go get a new bat.
I'm filling up my tablet with books I bought from the Google Play Store.
I just bought Premium Doodle Jump.
Got the new Ed Sheeran album from the Google Play Store, thanks to this kid who talks a big game. Yeah, Mateo here, he talks a big game about ISIS, but he's not about it. He's not about to walk the walk.
Will you come fight with us? Yes. Well, maybe not.
Yeah, he did a little research. Yeah, it seems kind of hard.
All right, this kid wins. This kid's an idiot.
I think I'll just cheer him on from afar. Good luck, guys. I've got your back. To prove it, I'm going to go buy $100 worth of Domino's gift cards so you can spin them on the dark web.
What a stupid scheme.
Raise $65 for ISIS.
What a stupid scheme.
Raising pennies on the dollar for ISIS.
That wins today. Does that beat the Box Bandit?
No. I still love the Box Bandit so much. The visual is so good.
Of him just lifting the box off his head. It's so funny. I hope this kid goes to jail, and I hope he learns his lesson, because he is very stupid. That does it for What Is Wrong With You. The Box Bandit picks up the win for the day and for the week. What Is Wrong With You, of course, brought to you by our good friends at Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. Top City Metal Supply, right here in Topeka. Let's get to a break. When we come back, ESPN's ranking of the top 32 5-man cores around the NFL. The Chiefs are number 1, but who do they have as their top 5? We'll explain next on 580 Sports Talk.
Attention.
We are going to get to this piece from Seth Wadler at ESPN in just a moment. I just got this text from my wife, and I need to share it. It is a screenshot from a local Facebook buy, sell, and trade group. Are you part of any of those?
I am not. My wife is.
Yeah.
I am not. I don't Facebook a ton. So
that's fair.
Yeah, it's not really my speed.
My wife also is a member of a multitude of Facebook groups or buy, sell, and trade or, similar things. A lot of them from when we were getting married, a lot of them from the wedding and trying to find wedding materials for cheap. So this is from a local town about, half an hour east of us, approximately. It's a picture, 3 different pictures of a MacBook computer.
Okay.
Including the charger. Here's the post. I am giving out this MacBook that I bought to surprise my husband for his birthday, but then caught him cheating on me.
Oh.
I know I could sell it and get my money back, but I want to show him I gave it away for nothing like he is to me.
Oh, man.
You done messed up, husband.
Oh.
Woo. Woo. Oh, man, that's a doozy.
Well, did your wife get the MacBook or what?
Well, I asked her, do you need a new computer? She said, no, I just thought it was funny. I said, well,
I'd take the MacBook. Damn.
Say, we can always take it and sell it. Just
on the dark,
want the money
on the dark web, and then we can fund ISIS.
All right, hold on now. Oh my God, yeah.
We are not
Mateo,
going to do
you
that.
Need a computer?
This is an anti-ISIS radio program.
Yes, we are staunchly anti-terrorist on this program.
Correct.
No, as you just sent that to me during the commercial break, that is incredibly funny. Dude, you had a computer You had a wife who obviously loved you enough to surprise you with a nice new computer. Don't throw that away. Do not cheat. Do not cheat on your significant other.
Man, who's more hurt, her or the woman on day 3 of the Zion Williamson exposure on Twitter?
Yeah, that.
The actress.
You know, I'm going to go with this woman because, as far as I'm aware, these are just like normal people. This woman who has receipts, air quotes, the largest air quotes I can give you, receipts of texts with Zion Williamson, where it sounded like he was trying to procure a business meeting with some women and not like just normal guy texting. She's been tweeting for 3 days about Zion cheating on her or with her. I'm not even sure exactly what the order is at this point.
It sounds like checks were written that Zion Williamson will not be cashing, as he and his current lady friend are expecting. Congratulations to Zion.
Yeah, Zion.
This should be a happy time for Zion Williamson. And this woman is in day 3 of trying to make sure that she spoils it, makes it all about herself. And
big loser behavior.
Yes,
to be frank.
Absolutely. Yeah, you didn't get chose. That's tough.
Sorry, that happens sometimes.
Maybe I don't know. Next time, different strategy. I don't know, man. That hurt people at the end of the day.
Apparently, come on, lady, just leave them alone.
Like, get off the tweets. Like, you're not doing anybody any favors continuing to tweet.
No, tweeting through it is never the right. As someone who has done it many times, let me tell you, it is never the right thing to do to try to tweet through it. We did want to get to this really quickly before we get to the top of the hour news. ESPN's, I believe this was Seth Walder who wrote this. Analytics writer for ESPN. He put together 1 through 32, ranking all the NFL teams based on their roster core, the guys you build your roster around. The Chiefs are number 1, no duh. The top 3 of their 5, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones. No other team in the league can beat that. None. That's number 1, even before you get to the other 2.
Agreed.
Walder also includes Creed Humphrey and Joe Thuney as the other 2 in that core 5. Would you agree with that too?
I would agree with Creed Humphrey.
Same.
I think there are a lot of names you could put in. Like, Joe Thuney isn't like out of place. It's not like, what, Joe Thuney? But like, is he even the guard I would choose to put on there? Maybe not. Maybe I would put Trey Smith in that group. If I had to only pick a guard, it might be Trey Smith. I understand they're paying Thuney a lot more money, and he's more of a veteran player. But I could argue that. I could also, I think, fairly argue Nick Bolton, as Matt Derrick did when we had him on in our Chiefs Insider segment last hour. I would argue maybe L'Jarius Sneed, except he's not under contract next year, and maybe that's why he's not included, where there's more of a long-term idea of what Joe Thuney being on the team looks like. So,
McDuffie?
Yeah.
A guy they traded up to get?
What did Isaiah Pacheco?
Could be. That tells you, A, how deep this roster is, but B, also how much it really doesn't matter who's in that 5th of 5 spots because the rest of it is so good. Like, that group right there, that top 4 includes the best quarterback in the NFL, best overall player, the best tight end, arguably the best interior defensive lineman, now that Donald, I think, is, I mean, he's still great, but I think is closer to the end than the beginning of his career, certainly. And I would still say the best center in the NFL. He's been the best center in the league since he was a rookie, in Creed Humphrey. Those are the 4 best players at their respective positions in the entire league. No other team can match that. Absolutely none. The rest of your top 5, by the way. Bengals, I think that's fair. They put Orlando Brown in there. That's, depending on your opinion of Orlando Brown, maybe a little bit too high. But, I mean, Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Trey Hendrickson, that's a really good group.
Yes, it is.
That's a really good group. Eagles 3rd, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Lane Johnson, Hassan Reddick, Darius Slay. Interesting to have 2 defensive players there. Reddick's a good player. Really is his true breakout year last year. Lane Johnson is old.
Yeah, his inclusion makes the average core age for the Eagles a little bit more than the Chiefs.
You could probably argue Devontae Smith belongs in that group. He's so good.
He is.
He's so good. They've got Miami 4th, Buffalo 5th. Miami, it depends on what you think about Tua Tagovailoa, but I mean, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Ramsey, Teron Armstead, man, that's a really good group.
I'm going to be honest. Dallas is 6th. I might put Dallas above both Buffalo and Miami.
Okay.
Dak, Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Trevon Diggs, and Zach Martin.
I think I would put them above Buffalo because certainly above Buffalo. And I think I could see for Miami too. Again, it largely comes down to what do you think of their two quarterbacks. Buffalo, Josh Allen he's up there. He's in the elite tier of quarterbacks, no doubt. I think Stephon Diggs is still an elite wide receiver. Von Miller's coming off a torn ACL.
Mm-hmm.
Trey White was not the same guy after the injury this past year.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a full year to get back to full speed. I'm willing to listen to that. White's still a good player. And then you got Matt Milano. Very important player for their team. Good player. Matt Milano, very solid, good player. Is that really your fifth best player, Matt Milano? I don't know about that. I would take that Dallas group over Buffalo as well. The rest of the AFC West teams in this ranking, they've got the Chargers 7th, so just outside that top 5. Justin Herbert, Joey Bosa, Rashawn Slater, Keenan Allen, Derwin James. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good group.
When those guys are healthy and on the field, which isn't often enough.
Depending on what you think of Aaron Rodgers, though, I might put the Jets above the Chargers. The Jets are next on the list. Rodgers, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Quinnen Williams, Elijah Vera Tucker. It's really young.
Yes, it's wild.
Rodgers.
It's wild that the average age of those 5 guys is less than 27 years old, despite the inclusion of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's crazy. 17th, so just beyond the midway point of the league, the Raiders. Outside of the quarterback, this group is actually really good. Devontae Adams, Max Crosby, Colton Miller, Josh Jacobs. That's actually a very solid core. Your quarterback's Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, that's the problem.
The rest of your roster is also bad. And then 20th is the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson, Pat Surtain, Jerry Jeudy, Justin Simmons, Cortland Sutton.
I don't know that Cortland Sutton's a core player.
I don't think so either
anymore. I don't think he's productive enough.
No,
but I also don't know who you put there if not him. Like Javonte Williams coming off the ACL.
Yeah, I almost by default you can't put him on there. If he was
Craig
healthy,
Dulcich?
Yeah, sample size is probably too small, but maybe. You want to talk about bleak? One spot down for the Rams. One of their guys is a draft pick from this year.
Yeah, that is bleak.
That is extremely bleak. We've got to get to a break. We have just half an hour left on 580 Sports Talk today, and that means our 580 Sports Talk headlines are coming up here on 580 WIBW. just a half an hour left on 580 Sports Talk on this feel-good Friday afternoon. Happy 6-9, by the way.
Nice.
Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you until 5:30. Royals baseball coming up tonight right here on the Royals Radio Network. 6:05 first pitch, 5:30 pregame start time on the Royals Radio Network. It'll be Daniel Lynch going for the boys in blue. It'll be Tyler Wells for the Orioles. We are still taking your texts on the text line, 785-272-9429. Your comments on YouTube as well. Our channel there is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Don't forget that if you've missed any of the show up until this point, head on over to our website, 580WIBW.com. Go to the podcasts page. Just hover over the podcast tab and then click on 580 Sports Talk. Or you can go to YouTube, and on our channel, along with hopping in and checking out the live stream, you can go and rewind the show or go check out anything from our past episodes of 580 Sports Talk and Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton. We only have half an hour left, less than that now, so let's get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Not a ton going on in the sports world today in terms of news. Now, there are some games, including a big one that Dan is going to have his eyes on coming up tonight. But my first headline is going to concern some stadium news, and it's some of the coolest stadium news I can remember. And no, it is not about the Oakland A's. However, they might have to stay in Oakland, and that is very funny. I'm not like they're not progressing toward that, but like Nevada doesn't really seem to want to pay them money. Like does not want to seem to give any public funding to build a stadium on the Strip, which I find very funny. And I kind of hope the A's end up homeless. Not for A's fans, certainly not for A's players or the coaches, but for owner John Fisher. I hope that happens. But my news is just breaking here within the last 20 minutes or so. In recent years, there have been a number of teams, I'm thinking specifically football teams, but teams from other sports too, that while their stadium is being renovated, they have had to go elsewhere. I think of the Chicago Bears. They played a year in Champaign at the University of Illinois, which is quite a drive. The Minnesota Vikings, while they were building US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, they played 2 years at the University of Minnesota. Can you qualify the Rockies as this? Because they played their opening season or opening 2 seasons at Mile High.
I suppose.
It's not quite the same, but similar-ish. Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the city of Jacksonville are going to do a major remodel in the coming years of TIAA Bank Field where they play, formerly the Gator Bowl. There's not a whole lot of...
No, it's not the Gator Bowl.
It is the same building.
Is it the same building?
No. It's on the same grounds.
Okay.
And the pedestrian walkway is the original.
Okay.
But
I'm sorry. I got that confused with the Citrus Bowl Stadium in Orlando.
Gotcha. But yeah, the studs of the Gator Bowl are there, but everything else is brand new on top of it. But it's the site of the original Gator Bowl. They're going to make over the stadium. They're going to put a retractable roof on it. They're going to make it, super modern, like all the other new NFL stadiums. They are probably going to need a place to play for a year or even 2 years while they completely redo the stadium. Well, according to venuesnow.com, which I was unaware of until literally right now, there is a report out there that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to hold meetings with Daytona International Speedway about possibly hosting Jaguars games in the future while they rehab TIAA Stadium.
Yes.
They're going to play football games at Daytona, possibly. That is awesome.
Yeah, that rules.
That rules. That is also...
Rooting for it.
I do not mean... This is not an insult, I promise. This is the most Jacksonville thing I can think of. We can't play in our football stadium. Let's play football at the track then. That would rule. As it is currently set up for racing, Daytona can fit 101,500 people. They would obviously have to make some changes if they were going to hold football games there. That would be sick. And I am rooting for this all the way.
Logistically, though, where do you put it made sense when who was it? West Virginia, Virginia Tech played at Bristol. No, Tennessee and Virginia Tech played at Bristol Motor Speedway. Yeah. But Bristol's small.
Yeah, it's small, short track.
Short track. So if you were sitting in the bleachers, you were close to the field.
Mm-hmm.
You're not close unless you're going to play on the is the infield big enough at Daytona?
Great question. I don't know. I'll look it up if
maybe it is. Maybe it's just huge.
Okay. It looks like it is fairly huge. The infield is 180 acres. I don't know how to convert that to yards. I do not. I know we've got some racing fans. Maybe you guys can help us out on the text line or in the YouTube comments with the sizing of this.
The infield is 180 acres?
Yes.
Okay. The dimension of entire football field is 1.32 acres.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, there's also a lake here. A 29-acre Lake Lloyd, which has hosted powerboat racing in the past.
Yeah, it has.
Wow. Northern Florida is awesome. There's so much good stuff going on. For what it's worth, TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville and Daytona Motor Speedway are Daytona International Speedway, excuse me. They're an hour and a half apart. Daytona is an hour and a half south of Jacksonville. But still, I mean, the Bears played in Champaign for a season, which is 2+ hours away from Chicago. They can make it happen.
Yeah, it's like I'm zooming in on this, trying to figure out like where you would put the football field. Like, do you put it like where the big Daytona logo is?
I would imagine
like you might be able to.
They should put it right in front of the lake. So like one of the sidelines, if you walk too far behind the bench, you walk into water. This should be as crazy as possible. That's what I'm rooting for. Just the wackiest looking thing you've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
But yeah, that's the big stadium news that just broke in the last 20 minutes, that the Jags are genuinely going to have discussions with Daytona International Speedway to host NFL games at Daytona.
That is...
I want that badly.
Yeah, that would be quite a spectacle, wouldn't it?
It was really cool when Virginia Tech and Tennessee played at Bristol. It
was
an awesome scene. You know, it's also college football versus NFL fans and all that, but they'll sell out NFL.
But again, like the geography of all of that made sense because it was a short track.
I don't know how it would work. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm at a bit of a loss.
I mean, you've got everything you need for an NFL game at Daytona. There's an Enterprise nearby. There's an RV park. There's also a Mexican restaurant and a Hooters. What more do you need? Those are all right around the park.
Very on brand.
No, I love this.
Jaguars football.
I hope it happens. I hope we get Jags Chiefs in 3 years at Daytona International Speedway. I would be all about it. The airport is also right next door. I did not know that.
Yeah.
It's literally right on top of the airport.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you see the planes taking off from there. Yeah, like when if a sitting president goes to Daytona, you see Air Force One take off and land.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. First headline for me, it happened last night. To nobody's surprise, the Oklahoma Sooners are the champions of college softball for a third straight time and the fifth time in 7 seasons. Oklahoma beat Florida State 3-1 to wrap up a 2-0 sweep of the best of 3 Women's College World Series Championship Series. They become the 27th Division I team in any sport to win 3 consecutive championships since 2000. They extend their current record 53-game winning streak and wrap up their season with a record of 61-1. They might be, all things considered, again, prisoner of the moment take here. You can call me that. That's fine. I'll live with it. They're the most dominant team. Is this the most dominant 3-year run in the history of college sports?
When you adjust for era, I think it's got to be in the conversation. I mean, how UCLA's run in the 60s has to be up there.
Yeah.
UCLA men's basketball.
The 60s and 70s, 11 titles in 13 years.
Yeah, I think that is still probably the gold standard. But again, in an era where transferring is a lot more common and you can have freshmen play and the playing field is so much more equal all over the place. I mean, if you wanted to give me the last 20 years, well, even the UConn women, though, I mean, they won 100 games in a row.
Yeah, they had a 4-peat.
Ah, man, that's tough. That is very, it's in the conversation. I can at least say that it is in the conversation. Winning that many games in a row is preposterous.
Also, their star pitcher is only a sophomore.
Yeah.
So, you know,
she's crazy. She is insane.
They are there's an anecdote from a story, an ESPN.com story, that when they left the stadium, like the team bus with all the players and coaches left the stadium, they forgot something. They forgot the trophy. There was a staffer who was traveling separately who was like, oh, hey, there's the trophy. We should go pick this up. But as the story suggests, they probably just could have left it and come back for it same time next year.
Yeah, it'll be waiting for them. It's amazing they lost this year to Baylor.
It really is.
It really is.
They lost a game to them 4-3, and then they played them in a 3-game series later and beat them by a combined score of 13-0 in those 4 games.
And the thing, too, it's not like Oklahoma is playing. And this is a thing I love about women's college sports. Like, women's basketball does this right. Just all year long. Non-conference, conference, doesn't matter. You've got top teams playing each other. Like, UConn and South Carolina play each other in women's basketball in, like, February.
Yeah.
They just find a way to get great games. Oklahoma in softball this year. They played non-conference games against top 20 ranked Duke. Shut them out. They beat Stanford, top 20 at the time, made it to the Women's College World Series, non-conference. They played top 15 Washington, non-conference. Washington also made it to the Women's College World Series. They played against number 1 at the time, UCLA. They played against them on February 26th, still early in the season. They was the number 1 team in the country with multiple All-Americans. They beat them 14-0 in 5 innings. Kentucky, they played back-to-back games against them. Kentucky at the time was top 20 in the country. They beat them 18-0 and then 7-1. The 17th ranked team in the country. They played Florida State, another non-conference game, who at the time was number 5 in the nation. Only beat them by 1, but they beat them 5-4. Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, they beat them 2 games in a row to win the national championship the last 2 days. Auburn, top 20. Back-to-back days, beat them 21-1 over those 2 games.
Pretty great.
Oh, and then they went undefeated in the Big 12, which is I don't know if it's the best softball league. It's a good softball league.
Probably SEC's the best league, but Big 12 generally pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. By the time they played Baylor again, when Baylor was ranked that time, they shut them out over 3. I mean, it's just insane. Yeah. Absolutely insane. Good for KU. Jayhawks put up 2 runs against Oklahoma. Baylor couldn't do that the second time they played.
That's true.
Just unbelievable run by Oklahoma. I mean, what are the... I'm sure you can find this somewhere. If you had to guess, what are the odds that they win next year's national championship?
Minus and then a big number.
I mean, it's got to be at least 500, right?
Yeah.
I would think so. I'll have to look for that. They're not going to win any money on that, but
no.
That is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, Jordy Ball is a stud. Yes. She came in and pinch ran during the first game of the championship series. They said, yeah, go out there and run. Well, you said you wanted to help us out however you can. We need a faster runner out there. So we're going to send our All-American, maybe best player in the country pitcher out there to do it.
That's something else.
They are just preposterous. Next headline for me on this shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk. Wanted to touch on this real quick, that the president of Washington State University, Kirk Schultz, you've probably heard that name before if you're a K-Stater, said today during a meeting that by all accounts went very, very poorly, said that the Pac-12's new revenue deal is probably coming in the next 2 weeks. Now, this was also after saying we can't give you a budget because all of these numbers are imaginary at this point. And this is all because Washington State, among all the other Big 12 school or Big 10, Pac-12. Oh my God, it's Friday. Pac-12 schools owe Comcast $11 million because of a bad deal that they just kept getting overpaid for. Essentially said, well, we can't tell you exactly what we can pay back this year because we don't know what money we're getting in the near future. So we don't know what we can borrow against and all of that. That has since been clarified by multiple people, including Pete Thamel of ESPN, who says WSU officials have still not seen a potential Pac-12 TV contract number. The officials were explaining to their board about why they were not projecting a budget past 2025. They still do not have any hard numbers.
That's not great.
I mean, you have to get it done by the end of the month, right? Because that's when San Diego State has to figure out whether or not they can switch conferences by June 30th. You've got to figure out if you are going to have any money in the future, if you're going to even be on TV beyond this year. So they've pretty much got to figure it out, I think, by the end of the month. But at first, it sounded like they had something coming down the pipeline. Then about an hour later, we found out they have nothing coming down the pipeline. This is unbelievable. And I said the other day how boring this story is because we just keep going in circles and nothing is happening. But we are at a point where it's almost unbelievable
that they haven't managed to get anything done.
Nothing at all. I think it was Fitz today over at Go PowerCat said, at this point, it just feels like the powers that be at the Pac-12 are just trying to stall as long as they can so nobody can jump to just give them another year of time, essentially, which would make me want to jump more.
Yeah, no
that
kidding.
Would make me more inclined to leave.
This is how much you failed to get your ducks in a row. This is the most essential thing that we do is make sure our games are on television, and you screwed the pooch on it this bad. Yeah, get me out of here.
Just absolutely absurd. So we are, after thinking early this afternoon, we might be closer to some Pac-12 news. We are actually just as far away.
All right, last headline for me. We got to get into the
playoffs
roundup. That's right.
Playoffs.
It's the playoff roundup as we take a look at what's happening in the Stanley Cup Final and the NBA Finals last night in Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. Carter Verhaeghe's overtime winner puts the Florida Panthers on the board. They take Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final against the Vegas Golden Knights in Sunrise, Florida, to get within 2-1 in that series. Very tightly called hockey game. Whole bunch of penalties. Both Vegas goals were on the power play, but in the end, Florida didn't goon it up. They got away from trying to hit everything that moved and draw a bunch of misconduct penalties and try and goad Vegas into fights, and they just played hockey. And what do you know? That ended up being good enough to win in overtime. 13 playoff wins for the Panthers now, 7 of them in overtime so far in these playoffs. Game 4 tomorrow night.
That seems extremely unsustainable.
Yes.
To have over half your wins come in overtime and multiple other 1-goal wins.
Yeah, pretty wild, right?
I mean, their penalty kill is bad. It is bad. And the fact that they allowed another 2 power play goals last night, I cannot trust them. I cannot.
Game 4 of the NBA Finals is tonight in Miami. Denver with a 2-1 series lead over the host Heat. How do you think it goes tonight?
I think the Nuggets win. I will take them. I already have taken them on the spread. I will tell you that right up. I think they are going to win by a few possessions. Miami will probably keep it relatively close in the fourth quarter, truly relatively close. And in the end, it's going to be the depth, and it is going to be the talent that Denver has versus a bunch of dudes who are playing above level and an exhausted single superstar for Miami. Like, that's a disaster for Miami.
I read a lot of articles today about how Miami can seize Game 4 of the series, and they all seem to boil down to, well, you can't let Jokic and Murray play well, and also you have to make a bunch of threes. And it's like, yeah, the latter is really the most important thing. Like, they won the game this series where they made 17 threes, and they lost the games where they made 13 and 11. And Denver has not shot it well. Denver made 1 3 in the second half of Game 3 and won the half by 10 points. They didn't even try a 3-pointer in the fourth quarter. They can just get whatever they want on offense, and Miami has to shoot the hell out of it to just keep up. So that has been the trend. I remain terrified that Miami is apt to make like 19 out of 24 threes because that's my fan brain keeping me humble, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Denver wins this, it kind of does become a matter of when, not if.
Because they're not losing 2 games in Denver. They're just not.
No, 3-1 is a stranglehold. That's only ever been blown once. We all know that one.
Yeah, we all know that one. I just, like in the NCAA tournament or in a Game 7, I think that fear totally well-founded, totally get it, because it's one and done.
Right.
You've got one shot. You've got 4 more games to try to not let Miami go nuclear hot in a way that they really only have for the past 4 weeks. I like the Nuggets' chances, personally. That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Would you take them to cover the spread?
If they win tonight, yeah, they'll win by more than 3.5.
Yep. That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll take one final timeout, come back, finish up the week of 580 Sports Talk with a quick final word. 580 Sports Talk before we send you off to the Royals Radio Network. Dan, you're up first.
Hope everybody out there enjoys their weekend. I know I'll enjoy mine a lot more if the Nuggets can win tonight in Game 4 of the NBA Finals. But I will enjoy the weekend anyway because Sunday is my 1-year anniversary.
Hey!
And I'm very excited to celebrate that with my bride. Love you, Abby.
Congratulations to you and to Abby as well. Final word for me today. I've talked myself all the way into Kansas State landing Arthur Kaluma. In the last hour and 15 minutes or so, I have decided that K-State is going to be a second weekend team if they can get Arthur Kaluma again this year. I'm being hyperbolic intentionally, but that feels like a piece that would really move K-State from, developmental, maybe a step back in year 2 with lesser talent to, they're going to be competing at the top of the Big 12 again. I've completely talked myself into that already. That will do it, though, for 580 Sports Talk on this Friday. Thank you so much for joining us today and throughout this week of shows. If you missed anything from today or from the past 4 days, head to our website, 580wibw.com. Go to the podcasts tab. Just hover over it with your cursor. And then when the menu pops up, click on 580 Sports Talk. That's where you'll find the hour-by-hour breakdown of the show every single day. You can also check out our YouTube channel. Make sure you go subscribe. Just go to youtube.com, search Sports on 580, click subscribe will be the first result. Then you can check out all of our videos, live streams, shorts, everything we are pumping out in terms of video content. We are back coming up on Monday. Full show with you from 3 to 6. We will recap everything from the weekend, including this Royals series with the Orioles. And pregame coverage for that series begins here in just a matter of moments. But until Monday, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We will talk to you then right back here on 580 Sports Talk.